our audiences and all the ABI colleagues for sparing your valuable time taking part in this very interesting panel discussion on regional comprehensive economic partnership and its impacts on Cambodia. Yeah, as you may be well aware that on 15 November 2020, the ministers from 15 countries, including ASEAN countries and 5 East Asian countries, have signed the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. And this is the world's largest free trade agreement that the world have ever had. And RCEP has the potential to deliver significant opportunities for the participating countries, including Cambodia and China. The 15 participating countries make up of 29% of the world GDP and 30% of the world population. And also negotiations were launched in November 2012 between these ASEAN countries and also and ASEAN free trade partners such as Australia, China, India, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea. So, but still, there are many questions revolve around the RCEP. Many people ask, what are the benefits of joining these, large trade pacts? What is the point, especially for small countries, small economy, developing economy like Cambodia and even China? So today we are ABI have a great honors to have our 3 distinguished panelists who are the expert in the RCEP. The first one is Dr. Soksipana, who is the senior advisor to Royal Government of Cambodia and also the chairman of ABI. And the second, we have Excellency Sims O'Kane. Excellency Sims O'Kane is the Secretary of State of the Ministry of Commerce of Cambodia. And the last but not least is Professor Su Hao. He's a very prominent scholar in China international affairs, also joining us today. So before we kickstart, please allow me to give a little bit of overview, a very brief bio of our 3 distinguished speakers today. So the first one, Dr. Soksipana. Dr. Soksipana is a practicing attorney and the managing partner at the law firm of Soksipana and Associate, a member of Zico Law in Cambodia. He is also serving as the senior advisor to the Royal Government of Cambodia, as I mentioned earlier. And previously, from 1999 to 2005, Dr. Soksipana served as the Secretary of State at the Ministry of Commerce, where he was instrumental in negotiating Cambodian accession to the WTO. From October 2005 to July 2009, Dr. Soksipana served as the Director of International Trade Center, a joint technical agency of UNCTAD and WTO in Geneva, Switzerland. From 2011 to 2018, he served as the chairman of the board of Cambodian Development Resource Institute, CDRI. Dr. Sok is the holder of Juris Doctor from Widener University School of Law in Delaware, United States in 1992, and a PhD from Bond University School of Law in Queensland, Australia, 2009. He is currently pursuing his PhD on comparative law with the Université de Paris 2, Pension Assas. Welcome, Dr. Soksipana. And our second panelist is Excellency Sims O'Kane. Excellency Sims O'Kane began his government career at the Ministry of Commerce since mid-1998. He served as the Ministry of Commerce management level since 2003, initially as Deputy Head of Division. Then from early 2008, as the Deputy Director of Department of Intellectual Property, and in early July 2012, as Acting Director of Department of International Cooperation. In early January 2015, he was appointed as Director of Department of Intellectual Property and became the President of Secretariat of National Committee for Intellectual Property Rights of Cambodia. In early May 2016, Excellency Sokeng was appointed as Director General for International Trade in early November 2018 as Under Secretary of State of Ministry of Commerce, and in June 2020 as Secretary of State of Ministry of Commerce. Oh, notably, Excellency Sokeng is Chief Negotiator for Cambodia on Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and Free Trade Agreement between Cambodia and the Republic of Korea. Oh, this is a very interesting background. Excellency Sim Sokeng, welcome on board. And the last but not least, Professor Su Hao. Professor Su Hao is a distinguished professor in the Department of Diplomacy and founding director of Center for Strategic and Peace Studies at China Foreign Affairs University, CFAU. He was the chairman of Diplomacy Department, director of China Foreign Affairs Section, General Secretary of East Asian Studies Center, and director of Center for Asia Pacific Study within this university. He also is affiliated with some institutions in China, such as President of Beijing Geopolitical Strategy and Development Association, member of Chinese Committee for Council of Security Cooperation in the Asia Pacific, CISCAP, and Pacific Economic Cooperation Council, board members of China Arms Control and Disarmament, Pacific Society of China, China Association of Asian African Development Exchange, and China Association of China ASEAN. Yeah, we are very honored to have you on board, Professor Su Hao. Yeah, and before we start, please allow me a little bit to explain the format of our discussion today. Discussion today is an interactive discussion, which can be divided into two main sessions. The first session will be the main discussion between the panelists themselves, with me acting as the moderators. I will pose the question to you, but feel free to jump in or share your insights anytime. And the second session will be the Q&A session. The panelists will be asked the question by the online audiences, and I will pick up the question from the floor and ask all the panelists. Yeah, and also the same thing. So please feel free to jump in anytime should you feel the need to. Yeah, thank you so much. Without further delay, I would like to kickstart our panel discussion right now. So first of all, can I start the question with Excellency Dr. Saksipana, please? The first question is, why does RCEP matters for participating countries, especially Cambodia? And the same question also goes to Excellency Sim Sokeng. And a similar question will go to Professor Su Hao, but this time my question is, why RCEP matters for China? So, Excellency Dr. Saksipana, please, the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Well, let me first say greetings to Sokeng. It's congratulations for your recent appointment, Professor Hao. A pleasure to know you, and once again, good job for organizing this event. I think for you did a very good introduction as to the context of the RCEP. For me, it's very, for me, speaking from a perspective of a former, WTO negotiator, in fact, I'm not that involved in the RCEP per se, except from a peripheral, foreign affairs perspective. Although, from that perspective, you see the larger macro issue evolving around the RCEP, more from the geopolitical perspective, right? Of course, RCEP is such a significant mega free trade that one cannot not situate it in the context of a geopolitical and geoeconomic context. And it is probably more from that perspective that I would want to share my view, because I've been following RCEP for quite some time, And you have to understand the context that, in fact, it was a more an East Asia, integration perspective that initially kickstart the process way back in 2011. In fact, it was 10 years ago, decades ago. And then later on, it was, put into ASEAN economic minister, endorsed to the summit level. And in 2012, that was when it was launched, the negotiation was launched in Cambodia, when Cambodia took the chairmanship of ASEAN. And since then, there's a lot of negotiation, and I'm glad that the ABI today have the opportunity to have Excellency Sokeng, who's been, actively, engaged as negotiator for the RCEP, and he can share with the audience quite a bit on the behind the scene issue as facing the RCEP itself. Let's be real about that. RCEP is I would say is a political animal. It when the U.S. Started the TPP at that time, China was not involved, and a lot of people, a lot of country was a bit worried about the China predominance in East Asia. And then later on, when the RCEP was, start the process, India was there. India was seen more as a counterweight to China as well. So you see the dynamics of the situation. Of course, to me, I mean, let's face it. Ultimately, the U.S. pulled out of the the TPP, which became the CPTPP, Comprehensive Partnership for Trans-Pacific Partnership. And then for RCEP, last minute, India pulled out of the RCEP for protectionism reason. So at the end, they sort of like between the U.S. pulling out of the TPP and India pulling out of RCEP, is sort of leaving China in a very, it's like put in a silver platter, a nice gift to China. I mean, that's the context. But to me, I think it's no different than the Belt and Road initiative complementing the RCEP for China perspective. But for example, for Japan, it's the same. Japan has also its free, open Indo-Pacific, and they are very aggressively working on other regional agreement with the EU, for example. So it's sort of complementing the RCEP per se, right? So I think from that perspective, I think RCEP is a good pull for more for the East Asian country. Let's face it, the three giants, right? China, Japan, and Republic of Korea are the one pretty much driving the RCEP per se. Of course, we have to acknowledge that the centrality of ASEAN, which is very important. We heard a lot about the Western media, sort of like insinuating that RCEP is China-driven. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think ASEAN centrality matter because let's face it, and Sokeng can tell us later on also that RCEP is built on ASEAN template. Is ASEAN plus, FTA with the other development partner, and each negotiating, group, working group are chaired by different ASEAN and, the development partner negotiator. So I cannot really agree that it is a China-centric. BRI is a China-centric, but RCEP is an ASEAN-centric, mega free trade. And this is something that we have to take credit as ASEAN, right? Of course, RCEP, ASEAN cannot pull it alone. It will require the support of the economic development partner of Japan, China, Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. So it's clear that it is a inclusive, if I want to be very open about it, it's an inclusive sort of like trade pact, right? As far as I can see, maybe I can touch a bit from a Cambodia perspective, since your question mentioned about Cambodia. I think Cambodia, let's face it, since we joined the WTO, and that was a long time ago, when I was much younger, I had more hair, it's like nearly 20 years ago. So it's a long time. When I'm not saying today that you don't have hair, or Professor Howe, you don't have that much hair, but I think we're all old. Huh? Let's be real. But when we negotiated accession WTO, and we joined in 2004, since then, Cambodia never have any other trade agreement on its own per se, with the exception of being a member of ASEAN, with ASEAN plus China, ASEAN, Japan, for example. And in recent year, there's a lot of, when I say recent, I'm talking very recent, it's only about 2 years ago, when we had the pressure from the EU under the Everything But Arms initiative, where they sort of like using this EBA as it's sort of like a leverage to pressure Cambodia, on other issue, say for example on some human rights or something like this, which I as a trade envoy, I don't agree with that. But ultimately we managed to spare the withdrawal, the full withdrawal, with a mere 20% withdrawal. But having said that, it pushed a lot of Cambodian policymakers to start diversifying, other source of trade, right? And that's why Excellency Sim Sok-Theng, is very involved in the the Cambodia China free trade agreement, Cambodia Republic Korea free trade agreement. So these are a good push. And of course, RCEP is also our baby, because it was launched in Cambodia, when we share the ASEAN. So these three new trade agreement, bilateral, Cambodia, China, Cambodia, are okay. And now the RCEP, it's Cambodia way to assert also its ownership, that look, we want to diversify to other economy. We, of course, EU remain a major trading partner. The US still remain a major trading partner, but we want to shift a bit the direction of our trade toward more East Asian country. And RCEP to me is probably the best and the biggest, trade initiative for a long time for Cambodia to tap of it. So I will stop that, and later on we can go over the detail of that. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, thank you, AVI. Before I start my intervention, let me thank for having me here. So I'm happy to join this discussion, and I hope we have more type of discussion on RCEP like this more. So I would like to share maybe because today we are just early stage of start ratification, so we may put in overall, and later on we can go in deep in special sector or association or academy or other. We can talk it more and further detail. So this is what I think is very useful. But let me respect to my boss, Excellency Soksipana, who on that time very good guidance to guiding us, including myself as well as a young junior. I starting on that even a little bit different year, but he also putting me on that so I can learn and build up until now. So this is a thank to my boss, we can say like that. And also nice to meet Professor Howe, who are interesting for you to share on your China view. And you may see that nowadays, just after signing in November 15, most of countries are very, very busy on ratification process. For example, like us, like Cambodian, we need to translation from English to Khmer. And to let you know, and some of you may know and some of you may not, RCEP agreement itself, they have 14,367 pages. So you see how huge it is, just only all the document for this RCEP. So all the countries are very busy on doing this one. And you may see that other countries also doing similar to what we are doing today too. But mostly they haven't seen any publication for the newspaper released outside. But I checked with my friend there, they are also doing similar thing on this one. Because why we are haven't doing that, because we want to ensure finish ratification fast as it can be, and want to ensure that it able enter into force by this year. So it's very important, like Dr. Sipana, Excellency Dr. Sipana already mentioned a lot on how important it is. So I will, before I start going to the economic and how benefit it is, what it matter also, just want to share, because he mentioned that he want me to touch Excellency Dr. Panna wanted me to touch some in the how we are negotiating. We have about almost 50 rounds of the meeting for the TNC, we call Trade Negotiation Committee. Don't talk about minister level, just only my level. So we have about officially 32 rounds, plus other almost 18, some only 1 day meeting, some maybe 1 week, depend on that. So we have about 50 rounds. So it may why it take about 8 years. And beside that, the minister also have 20 meetings for the minister, the full round and intercession round as well. So the minister also very actively participation in this also meeting. And beside that, the unique of this also is have the leader summit as well. So why on last November 15 is the 4th summit of the leader. So the leader have the year on that. So you may see that this is not a simple agreement, as we already hear that is the biggest, the largest. And if you pick up a little bit to, because I'm no need to mention how they share to economic, everything as the moderator already mentioned, I just want to pick up how it matters. You may see compare also with TPP, compare also with North American Free Trade Area, even they change the name now, compared to EU, compared to others. So you can see all these biggest of the economic in the world, still smaller than RCEP, even we compare to what our GDP. So the RCEP GDP is a very huge one, around 30%. Even here India or minor India is around 30% there, and also the population and the total trade. So this is another key important that you're able to see. First thing about economic in general. Second thing is why it's unique, because you may see that the biggest country in the world like China in terms of population, and compared to very small country like Brunei, this is the big and the small country. And the third point is about the economic development. So you may see the also measure of the 3-level classification of the UN: developing, and LDC. So you may see that LDC 3 countries are also there as well. So this is all they are unique. So you may have these 3 points to start up, continue our discussion. And Dr. Sipane mentioned about the ASEAN centrality. Yes, it is ASEAN centrality because it built up based on the ASEAN existing FTA plus 1 FTA. So why you may see all the countries are have FTA with ASEAN plus 1, and all from the trade negotiation committee, from minister to trade negotiation committee to the small working group, all are chaired by ASEAN. No any country from China or Japan or Australia or New Zealand or other. It's only from the ASEAN. So we have to pick up. So this is not something easy to pick up. The chair it is not too simple as well. So they have to divide their job. For example, some country who are chair of that, so they have to ensure that their country interest also there. And when they become the chair, they have to neutral everything there. So this is what the ASEAN try their best to have this one. So, for example, you may know that Indonesia is the country called, chair of the RCEP from the TNC, Pak Imam Babenggo. He is the Director General for International Trade Negotiation. He is chair for all 8 years, never missing 1 round. So this is try very hard. Even during that time, he was appointed as ambassador of to WTO. He fly from Geneva back down to East Asia to chair the meeting. So we continue until we have the good big result. So this is for general on economic on situation there, and why it eager to have the RCEP by last November. So you know already it's not only the I don't want to touch on political, economic, or other, but this is very sure that everybody want to use this as a tool for economic recovery from COVID-19 as well, because this is create a very huge regional value chain. It also can help add up to the world as well. And Dr. Saksipana already mentioned that about protectionism and other blah blah. So this is another signal too as well, because we want to maintain the multi trading system to ensure that they are moving well for this one. So, and for the Cambodian, before I stop, so you may see that before we start negotiation, even during the course, the area also make a study for us that during this one, we're able to have increase our investment attraction about 23.4% when they also already into the force, and also increase our export 7.3%, and as well as our economic growth on what our level 2% more. So this is the thing that is very important to Cambodian. And when all the thing moving, you may see that we're able to contribute to poverty reduction, job creation, blah blah. It is what it have there. So I would like to touch it overall like this one, and let on after listen to Professor Hao, and maybe have further specific question, I will go step by step on that. So thank you. May I pass the floor back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Excellency Simsokhay, for your thorough and very detailed explanation about the potential benefit that Cambodia as well as the other participating country may benefit from RCEP agreement. So now may I turn this floor to Professor Su Hao. Yeah, Professor, the floor is yours now.
Okay, thank you so much. It's my great pleasure to take part in this excellent and important events for our two countries regarding their economic cooperation. Actually, I found it in this panel discussion. We share a very important commonality, that is our three presenters. We share the same one letter, that is S. You know, my name is Su Hao. My family name is Su. You know, initiates name is S. So our three presenters are all has initiatives to name have our name, that is S. So that is the 3S in this panelist. Okay, so that means we share the commonality between us, among us in this panel discussion, and also we share the commonality between our two countries. We can see that we share quite a lot of common ground between our two countries, to promote our regional cooperation, manages the regional affairs and also the international affairs. Okay, so it's my great pleasure to have this opportunity to share my view with all our distinguished panelists. I also learned quite a lot for the former presenters, like Excellency Dr. Sipana and also Excellency Mr. Sokhan. So you have given me a very insightful points to define our bilateral relation between China and Cambodia, and also regional economic affairs. As a scholar, you know, myself, I'm a pure scholar, professor, not as the academic, and not as the official on behalf of Chinese government. So I just put into this panel discussion based upon my own academic research. Okay, this is my personal observation and point of view. But I prepare something of my presentation, so I would like to share my PPT materials with you all. I'm not sure whether or not in this Zoom I can share my view with my PPT. Let me try. Can you see?
You can share screen, Professor. Share screen. Yeah, press on share screen.
Yes, I can try for that. But it seems to me I need the permission from you, the host. Yeah. So could you give me this honor?
Yeah. We will facilitate that.
Yeah, you give me the permission so that I can share my view, my screen with you.
Yeah, Professor, hold on. Yeah. Can you turn it on now?
Can you see my screen?
We haven't seen yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Professor,
Yeah.
It's okay now.
Can you see?
Professor. Yeah.
Okay. You can see, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. So I have prepared these materials for my presentation. Okay, but because the time is quite limited, I just make it as quick as possible. So my topic for my presentation is like this: the RCEP framework that will be important tool for our regional cooperation, and this is also opportunity for our bilateral economic cooperation between China and Cambodia. So I have 4 points in my presentation. First, I would like to show the Chinese theoretical framework for our policy decision making to promote the regional cooperation. That will be their open regionalism. And based upon this theoretical framework, we'll try to figure out some kind of the patterns for the regional cooperation in their role-bearing pattern. This is the first point. The second, I would like to find the one word to define our bilateral relation between China and ASEAN. This word is calabash pattern. And the third, I will explain something more about the RCEP implication for our Chinese and Cambodia cooperation. And the last but not least, that will be the important opportunity between our two countries. So first, this is a framework of theoretical concept to define our regional cooperation. I give a word called open regionalism. Actually, open regionalism shares the common concept for the ASEAN country and China and East Asian members to promote our cooperation in the region. So in the past, regional stem from the European model, all right? That will be the traditional pattern. That means one region, one kind of economic system, one kind of political system, even the one kind of the broader regional religious. So this is inclusive. That is exclusive as model for the regional cooperation to be guided by this traditional regionalism. And after the end of the Cold War, so in our Asia Pacific region, we have the new concept called the new regionalism promoted by the United States. So American government promote trans-regional cooperation in the framework of APEC, ASEAN, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. So that will be a broader trans-Pacific economic cooperation. But later on, since this century, our East Asia try to figure out the kind of the open regionalism, which will be the new force, that's the new format of theoretical framework to be a guideline for our regional cooperation. That means region should have their own exclusive region. So our East Asian country will have our own regional identity. Like ASEAN country, Cambodia has their ASEAN belonging or the East Asia's identity. China will also share the identity of East Asian member. So our East Asian countries should be work together, united together in the pool of region of East Asia. But this region could be open to the outsider, to the other side of the Pacific, to the outsider of the other region, like the Indian Ocean, or even more Europe. So this will be the open regionalism. And based upon this open regionalism, we can build the inter-regional cooperation between East Asia and other regions. So based upon this kind of inter-regionalism and inter-regionalism, so we could build the global cooperative network among the regions in the whole of the world. So this is a general framework of theories to be guideline for our regional cooperation. But in the past, our East Asia will follow the model of the flying geese, so-called patterns flying geese. We know that in the late part of 20th century, Japan as an advanced country, so they take the leading economic position to be an economic distribution among us along the East Asia. So China follows this way to get benefit by this kind of the patterns of flying geese. So Japan as the top, and then 4 dragon, so-called newly industrial economies, take the second, and other developing countries in ASEAN as the fourth, and China and other underdeveloped countries as the fourth. So they follow this vertical pattern of economic distribution to enhance our economic cooperation in East Asia 20 years ago. But so this is patterns of flying geese. But now, after the rise of China, China becomes very much comprehensive economic cooperation in East Asia. So change the pattern from the flying geese into the roller bearing, like this picture. Okay, so this pattern of roller bearing will take the new model to enhance our economic cooperation in East Asia, even more than pan-East Asia, like this. So all the members in East Asia become the economic member to enhance our joint together in a pool of East Asia. We have our geographical identity in East Asia, including Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia together. And we could share the future all along the East Asia based upon our commonality in East Asia. We share the history, we share the culture, we share the society, even religions, or lifestyle. Of course, we share some kind of non-traditional security challenges and management and economic cooperation and even political manners for the governance in the region. And even more important, this is economic bloc to be shared or a member in East Asia. We share the production, trade, financial entity, investment, tourism, property rights, and even the human labor resources. So this becomes the chain of production, the chain of supply, even the chain of value in East Asia. So this is a real typical model of roller bearing like this. So we also have institutional arrangement all around East Asia. Like we have the vertical, official, mechanical cooperation, like the summit, ministerial meeting, and senior official meeting, DG meeting, and even quite a lot of track 2 cooperation in East Asia. And we have the horizontal sectors for the cooperation. So far, we have more than 16 sectors for enhance our cooperation in East Asia. So make us as the East Asia Economic Cooperation Community like this. So between China and ASEAN country, I give a word called calabash model. What does it mean? That means China and the ASEAN country, of course, plus Japan and South Korea, we share the one region of East Asia. So we share the one river, like Mekong River, and we share the one sea, that's the South China Sea. So this is a geographical platform for our cooperation between ASEAN country and Northeast Asian country, in particular China. So this is kind of model, strategic model for the cooperation between us. China, we have the M model. We call the one axis from China down to the Southeast Asia, and we have the two wings, one river and one sea. So we call this one axis, two wings. And from ASEAN country, in particular Cambodia, so this kind of the wide strategy. That means the one circle called South China Sea or the Mekong River. But we have the two corridors up to into Northeast Asia, in particular China. One is the coastal line into China, and one is inland into China. So look like a wide strategy. So this kind of two strategy could be easily combined together. Like M strategy is to hold their Y strategy like this. So this is a very perfect combination between China and ASEAN country in this kind of strategic connectivity. So look like ASEAN country and China and Northeast Asia country look like a calabash like this. So I travel all around the ASEAN country. So I can aware that ASEAN share quite a lot of commonality between yourself and China. So this will look like a calabash between China and ASEAN country like this. So we cannot divide it with each other. To tell you the truth, I'm original from Yunnan province. Yunnan is also kind of, part of Southeast Asia. So I share quite a lot of, culture and then way of life with our ASEAN neighbors. They look like this. It's a perfect fruit. ASEAN plus China, plus Japan, and plus South Korea. So we share common ground within East Asia with the model of calabash like this. So we share quite a lot of, important factors between us in this calabash model. And in Chinese, we have the cartoon, the animated cartoon like this. We call it Calabash Brothers. So China and ASEAN countries, we could share Calabash Brothers spirits to enhance our cooperation with each other, like this. So because time is quite limited, I'll make it quick, okay? So ASEAN, as one hand, you already have your own community, ASEAN community, to be enhanced by your own cooperation in Southeast Asia, okay? So China supported very much about the ASEAN community building, in particular the ASEAN centrality in East Asian cooperation. But also China could, based upon our infrastructure building and productive, sharing with ASEAN country, in particular with, Indo Peninsula, Indo-China Peninsula. So enhance our cooperation, by the infrastructure line between us, like this. In particular, Cambodia always in the center of this kind of the infrastructure building project. So China will pay much importance on our ASEAN country. So ASEANs always take the first in Chinese neighboring foreign policy and our neighboring diplomacy. So land ASEAN and the maritime ASEANs also are the two ways for China to be engaged into the East Asian cooperation. Sorry, I have to make it quick. So ASEAN plus 1, much more than 11. So that is enhance of East Asian cooperation to be shared, all of us, so that we can get benefits in this kind of East Asian cooperation. So China and ASEAN from the golden year and now into the diamond years. Now, diamond year means RCEP, okay? So now we have a very important institutional FTA to define our cooperation in East Asia. So originally, ASEAN has initiative for the RCEP, and now RCEP already signed between us a few months ago. So it becomes ASEAN plus 3 and plus another 3, of course, minus India. So this is Pan-East Asia cooperation all along the West Pacific. So RCEP is based upon the ASEAN's free trade area. We know that ASEAN becomes the free trade areas in Southeast Asia. And ASEAN already, combines the Northeast Asia, like China, Japan, and India, of course, Australia and New Zealand. So ASEAN centrality to enhance the FTA framework all along the West Pacific, already there in the past. So many kind of FTA centralized by ASEAN countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, Philippines, Vietnam, of course, Thailand, and Cambodia also has some kind of free trade with China just some months ago. So ASEAN centrality becomes the free trade areas building in the region of the West Pacific. So regarding the RCEP, this is very important for our East Asian country. So first of all, I would say that RCEP includes more than 90% of good trade to be shared the free tariff. And the second, RCEP will much focus on the original place for the production. So that means we share the value of products among us in RCEP among RCEP members. So that it makes the solid foundation for the regional economic bloc building. And the third, RCEP will also enhance the trade in service and transnational investment. So that's open the door for the financial flow within the RCEP member regions. And the fourth, RCEP will lay the foundation for the facilitation of their commercial, the digital commercial service. So this follows the new ways of trend of global economy. So RCEP is a very important function to enhance our regional cooperation in East Asia. So RCEP is the biggest FTA in the world. RCEP is very much taking the principle of inclusiveness for the members in the region based upon the different level of economic development, like the advanced country, developing country, and underdeveloping country could be put into the one platform of RCEP. And RCEP is centralized by the developing country. Even though Japan and Australia is a member of that, but ASEAN has a centrality for this RCEP framework. So that means RCEP is a real significant platform for our developing country in East Asia. So of course, for China, it's a very important opportunity for China to be engaged ourselves into the RCEP region. So China could be the key member of RCEP because we are the biggest economy in this region. So we can take the positive role to enhance economic development in the region of the West Pacific. And China, the reason why China supported very much about the RCEP process, okay? And we share common interest within this framework of RCEP or along the Asia-Pacific region. So RCEP also overlapping with another platform called CPTPP, as former presenters mentioned that. That means China will, on the one hand, enhance our cooperation within RCEP, and on the other hand, will, based upon RCEP, to welcome other members outside of RCEP to be engaged into this region. So CPTPP will lay the foundation in the future for the advanced economic cooperation of the Trans-Pacific platform. So China will open its mind for the future to be a member of CPTPP. So last but not least, I would say that RCEP significant for the China and Cambodia cooperation. This will create good opportunity for us because China and Cambodia, we are the special economic cooperative partner in the region. First, Chinese initiative of Belt and Road Initiative. Cambodia is key member all along the ways of maritime, Silk Road cooperation. Cambodia reals their key countries in the infrastructure building from China down to the Southeast Asia, in particular to the Indochina's peninsula. So China stressed the importance on the Cambodians in economic cooperation in the region. Even in particular like this, China will take the more promotive, matter in the infrastructure into the Southeast Asia, ASEAN country. So Cambodia could be, a stone for China from Cambodia broader into the whole of Southeast Asia and even the South Asia. The reason why China takes importance on Cambodia's role in the regional economic cooperation. I'm sorry, this is some Chinese. I haven't enough time to translate into English, okay? But anyway, I would say Cambodia is close, friendly, partnership with China within the ASEAN country. Not only is there 3 rivers, we call Irrawaddy River, South Mekong River, and Mekong River. So along these 3 rivers, Cambodia is a very important role to be implemented of Chinese the Belt and Road Initiative. The reason why Chinese leaders keeps our high levels interaction with Cambodia's government. So almost every year, even this pandemic, spread in the region, but we also welcome the senior officials, even the king of Cambodia come to China. So that means we have a very close interaction between China and Cambodia at a high level. In particular, in economic fields, China and Cambodia also very good partner because China is the biggest trade partner for Cambodia. China is the biggest, import resources for Cambodia. Of course, China is the biggest investor into Cambodia. So that means China and Cambodia is very important interaction with each other in economic fields. Of course, China will offer quite a lot of economic assistance to Cambodia regarding Cambodia's economic development. So regarding the bilateral trade relation with each other, Cambodia and China will have much more and more importance regarding the increasing economic, trade relation with each other. So since 3 years in the past, Cambodia and Chinese bilateral trade increased quite a lot, even though this, COVID-19 pandemic spread out in the region, but we also keep the momentum regarding the economic cooperation between China and Cambodia. So this graphs tell us the trade relation so much importance and closer with each other. So in particular, just a few months ago, last October, China and ASEAN, China and Cambodia, we signed the free FTA agreement. So this steps important high-level economic cooperation with each other between us. So I would say that this kind of the CCFTA between our two countries will symbolize our new stage of economic cooperation between us, because this is their important trade partner. Because China will have our 18th of FTA agreement. So now Cambodia is the highest level among this kind of FTA agreement of China. So within this kind of agreement, regarding their trade in goods is very much high level. It's the highest level in Chinese framework of the FTA. And also the trade in service is also comprehensive between us. So that means this agreement of FTA between China and Cambodia is highest level within China's FTA framework and also Cambodia FTA framework. So there's several kind of the first to define the FTA between China and Cambodia. That means this is the first FTA between China with underdeveloped country. This is the first FTA agreement take the shortest time to be negotiation. This is the first FTA agreement, to be wrote into their documents mentioned the Belt and Road Initiative. So this is also the first agreement after the pandemic spread out in the region. So you can see that this CCFTA is very important in the region. And I would say that based upon this kind of FTA, we have the 3 levels. We have the trans-regional cooperation, that is RCEP. This is sub-regional cooperation, like China-ASEAN FTA. This is also bilateral FTA cooperation between China and Cambodia. So we laid a solid foundation, economic foundation for our cooperation. And now I would like to suggest our bilateral cooperation plus the third country. China and Cambodia, not only just exclusive cooperation between us, but we also welcome the third party to be engaged into our cooperation, like China and Japan, or China and Singapore cooperation into Cambodia. Of course, Cambodia and China cooperation also welcome the third country to be engaged into the region. So we give the world like this vertical triangle cooperation and the negative negative trilateral triangle cooperation. So by this way, I would say that China and Cambodia cooperation will enhance not only within our bilateral FTA cooperation, but also the regional cooperation of RCEP. So there's good opportunity for us. So in conclusion, I would say that open regionalism is a real guideline for our further regional and trans-regional cooperation. And the pattern of rural bearing in East Asia will be the easiest platform for the integration of regional cooperation in East Asia. And the calabash model could be a good pattern to define Chinese and ASEAN countries. And RCEP, you make the mechanical framework for the pan-East Asia members regarding our economic cooperation so that we can have the West Pacific economic bloc in the global economic pattern. And the last but not least, that will be created more opportunity for the ASEAN, for the Cambodia and China's economic cooperation in the future. So that's all. It's my presentation. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Su, for your very detailed explanations on the Cambodia-China economic relation as well as the RCEPs. So since all of you more or less mentioned about the Cambodia-China free trade areas, so I would like to ask you questions that maybe all of you can answer. Do you see that the RCEP and Cambodia-China free trade areas is something that complement each other or something that conflicting each other? In other words, whether the RCEP is something that could give a boost to Cambodia-China free trade area or something that hinder the China-Cambodia free trade. Yeah, from your perspective as the policy practitioner as well as academics. So can I start first with Excellency Saksipana?
I would say, all these agreements complement each other. And like Professor Hao mentioned that it's the level of ambition that each agreement carry. Right? So it's all the way about that. How far, each country are we willing to go the next level in terms of say market opening, for example, in terms of service commitment, for example, for Cambodia, I would say because we had a very, I would say, ambitious WTO commitment, under WTO commitment, our economy is quite wide open already, both in service sector and in terms of trade of goods. So in that sense, what we are looking for is more how to build the productive capacity. To me, I would say this, right? Cambodia has been a very open economy. We've been very liberalized already. Our challenge had never been about market access. Our challenge has always been about, as a least developed country with limited, industrial capacity, our challenge has always been about productive capacity, how to build a good product that meet international standard. How do you have a good cluster industrial platform to support the development of this industrial production? How to have quality energy, quality infrastructure to make sure that we, our factory do not get blacked out in the middle of the day. How to get good road transport to make sure that our transport costs will not be overwhelmingly, expensive. So I say the issue for us is now that we have the RCEP, now that we have the Cambodia-China free trade, we soon will have the Cambodia ROK free trade and a few more other agreements. The challenge is how do we work with the country like China, like Japan, like Korea, Australia, for example, to have a technical cooperation to help, technical support. And this is where I see the value of being a small country in the RCEP, is the preference that a bigger, more advanced country will give to smaller economy, right? Excellency Samsok mentioned, and also Professor Hao, you have mentioned that RCEP is inclusion of the three level, right? The developed country, the developing country, and the least developed country, right? According to the UN classification. According to the World Bank, IMF is different classification, but still, I would say that having the technical cooperation, a strong technical cooperation in the area of industrialization will be very helpful. Say, for example, and I like the idea of Professor Hao mentioning the plus one, It's very important because China and Cambodia could do something together. Say, China invests in Cambodia, but then how do we bring also Singapore into the picture, for example, so that we can eventually have a combination of very smart technology, smart industrial capability to produce a RCEP product that can be exported to Japan for that matter, which is a much more demanding, high standard, product receiving country. So we cannot just rely on Cambodia agriculture product, which is fine. But even for Cambodia agriculture product, say for example mango that we have enormously grown in Cambodia, without the right sort of like phytosanitary process, one can never export to Japan or to Korea. We have a very good breakthrough with China in terms of banana. We have plantation of banana, but still there are phytosanitary aspects that require millions of dollars of laboratory certification. So I think for Cambodia as a small country, how we benefit from RCEP would be more from this multilateral, trilateral, plurilateral, or even bilateral arrangement for a more advanced country, to help us develop the product that we can export to other country. And so that's my one point. My second point is how do we capture the full benefit of RCEP is again the rule of origin. Cambodia would not have enough ingredient or enough raw material, to make its own 100%, rule, made in Cambodia, rule origin. We don't have it. So we rely on the import of other, semi or raw material, from other RCEP country. So this is where I want to stress more on trade facilitation, because if we have a good trade facilitation, you can easily import good in, so that we can make up the 40% rule of origin to make up an RCEP product. So trade facilitation matter tremendously in benefiting from the RCEP, right? One have to have a cheap way to import the product, and one have to have another efficient way to export the product, so that this way we bring the cost of manufacturing, the cost of transport, the cost of doing business low. And this is where I see the competitiveness of a nation like Cambodia, in getting more business from the neighbor, not just from ASEAN, from the other 15 RCEP country. Because let's face it, China labor is expensive, Japan labor is expensive, Korea, Australia, they high end already. So but they have the capability to produce, but they still need good cheaper labor force, and Cambodia can provide that. The other thing is that Cambodia have a very young population, so very IT savvy, very technology savvy now, young engineer, young app developer, and this is the area that I see will benefit from the service sector. How do we outsource our young engineer, our young software app designer to work with Chinese company, to work with Singaporean company, to work with Japanese company. So I think the benefit for small country like Cambodia, it's a lot, but it's how we look inward to build the capacity of our people, you know, in the service area is one thing, but also in the production area by building the right vocational training, the right technical training, you know. So to me, it's the role of the government, of course, you know, it's the role of you know, development partner to assist, but ultimately I think it boils down to the role of the private sector, so that they can understand better what are the trade benefit, what are the area they should focus to build their competitive advantage, and then reach out to the government, you know, to say, look, Mr. Official, Excellency Sim Sokhay, you know, we want to produce, say, mango juice. See, we have a lot of mango, you know, we export mango, we export banana, but now we want to go up a value chain, you know, to produce mango juice. Okay, can you know, can you establish a collaboration framework with China or with Japan, with Korea, to establish a lab, a phytosanitary, to so that you can qualify, you know, that our mango juice, say, meet the phytosanitary aspect, meet the TBT aspect, so that we can export. So I think the trilateral role apply also inward, country, you know, government, private sector, and with the development partner, if we are to benefit fully from the RCEP, you know, agreement.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saksipana, for your interesting insights into you know, the complementarity between you know, RCEP and China-Cambodia Free Trade Area. So the same question may ask Excellency Sim Sokhay. Would you mind sharing with us? You think that the two complement each other, or something else? Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you. I'm fully echo and support Excellency Dr. Saksipana mentioned. As you may know that the FTA from one to one, it complement each other. So now put it simple for you and the audience as a whole to see that, for example, ASEAN China FTA, the tariff elimination around 90% of their total tariff, and later on it continue to also it able to get around 92%. That one for the tariff elimination, and continue to the Cambodian China FTA, as the professor already mentioned, they over almost 98, 97 point something, almost 98. So you may see the increasing of opening of the cutting tariff line. So this is more and more better access. So we can say complement in general, and specifically you may know that, for example, China may have to give some tariff line to all the country also as a whole, but when they have bilateral FTA, they, besides increase, they may add some the very sensitive tariff line for the country for specifically. So this is exchange between that. So we can see this is a really complement and really help more moving integration more and more. So this is the thing that I would like to say in general, and later on there may be better access. So the exporter, they can go any based on this tariff line, so they can go which one they may choose to go to the Chinese market, because not all FTA are covered the same. So this is the choice, and in short, it means it add more and more value to our country, and especially for easier for our exporter. So I may end up here. Thank you, moderator. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Professor, would you like to share your opinion about the complementarity between the two? Or I think more or less you already mentioned about Cambodia-China Free Trade Area.
Yeah. Maybe I add something more regarding my explanation about the complementary cooperation between China and Cambodia. Of course, we have the 3 levels of FTA framework between us, right? That is, first is the RCEP. It's a trans-regional cooperation along the West Pacific. In this framework, Cambodia as of course we say at least the least developed country with based upon the UN's norms. So Cambodia has some kind of the advantages like the agricultural production in the region of the West Pacific. So China could offer quite a lot for their agricultural development. In particular, China will have some kind of the experiences to develop our own advanced agricultural production. So by this way, China could offer the assistance to Cambodia to enhance your own agricultural industry. In particular, there's some kind of economic agricultural industry like the mango. Your Excellencies, the Sifna mentioned that, or tropical fruits. This is very much welcome by Chinese market or other Northeast Asian market. So China will give assistance for Cambodia regarding your own tropical fruit industry. So in the FTA of the RCEP, so this is Cambodia's advanced agriculture in sectors. The second, the China-ASEAN FTA. Cambodia is also an important member of ASEAN country, right? So for China, regarding the Belt and Road Initiative, so we pay importance on the Cambodia's role along the BRI's initiative. So Cambodia, on the one hand, you are the coastline country in the Southeast China Sea, right? So your Sihanouk Harbor is also important for China to invest into your harbor building. And by this way, we can enhance our commercial linkage between China and Cambodia by this harbor building. So based upon this Sihanouk Harbor, it's easier for China to spill over to other ASEAN members, like Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam. So by this way, Cambodia is economic harbor for China, okay? And also regarding to the Mekong River, so we're also an important long-term Mekong mechanism building, right? So all along the river. So Cambodia as a lower Mekong initiative and lower Mekong's member. So for China, because somehow there's a distrust, between China and some other lower Mekong members like Vietnam, right? So Cambodia, by this way, enhance our cooperation all along the Mekong River. So we'll reduce some distrust with your neighbors like Vietnam. So China and Cambodia, we can enhance our economic cooperation all along the low Mekong River. So in the framework of ASEAN-China FTA. Of course, the third level is our bilateral FTA. So I would say that China, like Excellency Dr. Sipanan mentioned that Cambodia, you have your own advantage. That means you have the very young labor sources, all right? So this is very important. China at the moment will try to readjust our internal economic structure, in particular our manufacturing structure. So some manufacturing sector could be shifted into your country. So use your cheap and young labor sources. So that means we can share our production chain between China and ASEAN country by this way. So somehow like Cambodia's factory could be offered to China regarding some kind of their part of their industrial products, like the cell phone. Maybe I suggest our China government to invest into Cambodia regarding some kind of their electronic production in Cambodia. That would be good for China's economic development. So we can share our labor sources, we can share our factory, we can share our products. So make our Chinese products made by our two countries. All right. So this is very interesting fields for our cooperation between China and ASEAN and Cambodia. So our bilateral FTA, because we have quite a lot of special arrangement in the trade in service or the trade in supply chain. So by this way, China and Cambodia will quite build our special economic partnership with each other. So I'm quite optimistic for us. And Cambodia is becoming the very much most closer economic partner with China in ASEAN country members. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I'm kind of interested in the what you mentioned about the like Dr. Soksipana also mentioned about the training, providing capacity trainings to the less developed country like Cambodia. I just wonder what kind of training or what kind of assistance China can offer to the developing economies like Cambodia. Can you give us a specific example, like what type of
Of course, the most advanced sectors of Cambodia's economy is their agricultural products production, right? In particular, tropical fruits like mango, right? So I would say that China is the biggest market for the agricultural products, right? In particular, the tropical fruits. So Cambodia's mango or other tropical fruits could be their invest to export it into China. So far, I would say that Thailand, Vietnam, quite a lot of agricultural products in China, but not very much more products from Cambodia. So I would say there's quite a lot of space in Chinese market for Cambodian tropical fruits. So I think this is eminently, for our advantages to enhance our bilateral cooperation at the moment, right? And the third, the second, I would say that the Belt and Road Initiative. So the infrastructure building, like the harbor, Sihanouk harbor function, will enhance our Chinese-Cambodia's economic linkage. So by this way, this kind of economic partner will be spilled over to Cambodian neighbors, like Thailand, like Vietnam, or Malaysia, based upon the Sihanouk harbor. So that could be their, multiplied our economic function beyond our bilateral economic cooperation. And the third, I would say that's based upon your cheaper and younger labor sources. So that being another kind of space for China's distribute our infrastructure production. So Cambodia becomes a very important partner for China regarding our relocated our infrastructure, development. So this is my point. Thank you.
Yes, I think Excellency Dr. Saksipana would like to share something with us. Yeah, Excellency.
I want to share one specific example where we've been able, under the framework of the Mekong Lanchang Cooperation, to have sort of like a support from the Tianjin Sino-German University of Applied Science. They have provided the Cambodian government, particularly the Ministry of Labor, with a lot of equipment, five-story building equipment, all engineering, mechanical, hydraulic, telecom, robotic, so these are more to build a pool of a worker, skilled worker that can be absorbed to work in factory, like Professor Hao mentioned. If we bring electronic, if Chinese company bring some electronic to Cambodia, they would need people who know how to use this equipment. If we want to move into sort of like sophisticated manufacturing, our young people will need to know how to handle hydraulic equipment, that sort of thing. If we move to 5G, with Huawei, a young IT engineer need to have training in Huawei telecom equipment, for example. The company can only do what I like to call on-the-job training, but they will not hire people who have no skill. So to me, the job of the Cambodian government to work with development partner, whether with China, or with Japan, or with Korea, is to have this initial industrial capability training, so that they have something to start with. You know, if they want to work in the say, for example, in construction, in say power plant construction, they got to have some industrial knowledge on how to handle mechanical or hydraulic, you know, in engineering, for example. You know, if they want to work with Huawei, they got to have some background in telecom equipment. You know, so now with the fourth industrial revolution, you're talking a lot about robotic, right? You know, other countries are moving to robotic, but if our young people have never been trained in robotic or never have the equipment to work with, you know, robotic, how can you get a job? How can the Ministry of Commerce or the government try to attract FDI in robotic to the country? It cannot. So the job of the government is really work with development partner to ask them to help establish initial, you know, training center for that purpose. I think it's very important. And so far right now, what is interesting with the center that the Mekong Lanchang have established, you know, with the collaboration of Tianjin Sino German University of Applied Science, we open for other Mekong countries to come and learn in our vocational training, and is in outside Phnom Penh in the area Kap Sreu, right? The National Institute of Training there. So we open for other Mekong Lanchang country like Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Thailand. You know, if they want to come to learn there.
Yeah, it's very interesting to learn that we have such a training provided under the Mekong Lanchang cooperation frameworks. Then thank you so much, Dr. Sopsipana, for sharing. Also, thanks, Professor Su, for sharing with us the very interesting insights about the Cambodia-China free trade area, and also your perspective on how to, you know, make the RCEP and Cambodia-China free trade area workable, especially in the benefit of Cambodia and also China. So coming to Excellency seems okay. I think you mentioned one point very interesting about the round of negotiations that has been conducted by the RCEP countries. You mentioned that maybe around 50 rounds of negotiation has been conducted, if I am not mistaken, from the year 2012 up to, you know, the year 2020. So I wonder, you know, why it took so long for the RCEP countries to, you know, just to finalize the negotiation. There must be some kind of, we call, sticking points or sticking, you know, some kind of barriers or problems over there. Would you mind sharing with us like what are the, you know, most controversial point in negotiation between the RCEP country, especially, you know, Cambodia, also the other, you know, developing economies? Excellency, thank you.
Thank you, Moderator. You make a very good question and strategic question. I try the best to share now, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning, because I don't want to pick some sticky point because it may be this information may be affect to other country, but I can say that you are mentioned right, there are some sticky point. So you may see if we look at earlier, we plan to finalize. We plan to negotiation between 5 years, but it extend to 8 years. So it missed the deadline 3 years between that. So this is the first thing I want to share. Second thing, you may see already that I mentioned. How we deal, how we scope that between developed country, developing, and LDC, the three major. They some country may put very high ambition they want, but some want very low ambition as low as they want. This is the thing that they unable to meet each other. So all until 2018, so they come up, okay, so let's start increasing around 90% to 92, even that some are unable to reach 92. So just only I talking in percentage. I don't want to go in deep, okay? So this is, we may see that try to increase this to maximum on this one, also another challenge for some country, because you may see, as I already said, there are very big country there. During that time, the India also still there. The China, until now, they are with us all the time, but it's very big. So some country hesitate, flood some of the good from other country to their country, because when we open more, so this is not the small like Cambodian, our capacity of producing the good to export is limited, so it no matter, but other they are very high capacity of producing, so this is also scare the other country one point in terms of the good. So we're talking a good from almost over 1 hour and a half, so I mentioned one good. Besides that, there are some, for example, like intellectual property. So you may know already the IP is also another challenging for some country that they are unable to comply with intellectual property. So this is another big issue. But later on, we try to best to cover both. Who are some country want very high protection of IP. On some country want to low, because you know that low IP it may be able to use, for example, like generic drug, something like that, blah blah. So it able. So now we have to take out all this simple. And the last point for the market access. Market access, as the Excellency Dr. Pana already mentioned, during our WTO session, we are open more, and Cambodian is among the most liberal and open more. But other country also even low, much lower, even unable half of our open of the service sector other market access. So this is very challenging. So other demanding more for Cambodian, as you already put the question to me, Cambodian is, we have a good ground, because during negotiation of WTO, we already have some certain and expertise also advise us on that. And at the same time, from bilateral ASEAN +1 FTA, we also experience on that, it's more better. But some country in the RCEP, they have an FTA with each other. So you may see that some country, for example, like now, China don't have FTA with Japan. So this is another issue. And some country, because China here, so I just use the country that here only that have, but not only China and Japan, but other also don't have FTA as well. But for Cambodian as ASEAN a whole, we have all FTA with our partner, the 6 country. So it make it not so much difficult, but other none, they have also a big gap. We can say gap, something like that. So I may put in general, frankly to you, when after we ratification, I may able to give more and more step by step that. So I may would end here, and thank you. Maybe Professor can add, because Professor he in capacity, his capacity easy and able to talk even much more than me that I have to carefully to share what I able to share now, and maybe next I can even increasing my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Excellency, seems okay for your interesting actually, since due to our time constraints, I can only ask you one last question, because there are already some question on on the floor is coming up, so I better pick up those questions for you for the next round. So the next question for you, for all of you, is that as you may know, that the United States and EU are not part of the RCEP yet. So do you believe that, like in the future, is there any possibility that these countries or bloc will become a part of RCEP? So in this regard, will Cambodia and China support their participation in RCEP? So this question, can I first ask Professor Su? Yeah, Professor Su?
Okay, you mean the RCEP, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, RCEP reveals the regional or pan-East Asian framework. So that means, first of all, I would say that's based upon our theory of open regionalism, right? So first of all, so countries should have their own regional identity. So EU country is outside of East Asia. United States is outside of the Pacific. So they are not a real regional member of East Asia or the West Pacific. So in this regard, regarding economic identity, so in the whole of the world, we have, at least so far, we have the 3 blocks: European bloc, economic bloc, North America economic bloc, and East Asia economic bloc, right? So in this background of their global economic pattern, so European Union, they have their own regional framework of FTA. And North America, they have their own regional FTA mechanical framework, right? So now, all along this global economic pattern, so we have the 3 distribution of economic, pattern. So in this regard, I would say that so far, RCEP is really our own regional economic FTA framework. So we don't think that moment or in the foreseen future, we could actually encourage the outsider to be engaged into the FTA. But our FTA in East Asia or Pan-East Asia could be open to the outsider, to the Europe, to North America, right? So by this way, we can have the inter-regional cooperation. So this reveals our framework to define our global governance by this way, okay? So in this regard, I don't think so far European Union or North American members could be the member to be considered involved within the FTA of the RCEP. Is my point. But of course, we can try to figure out the inter-regional cooperation by the institutional arrangement. Like we have the Asia Europeans Summit. We call it ASEM, right? So we already have the institutional arrangement between us. And we have the APEC. There's also Trans-Pacific Economic Partners cooperation with each other between our West Pacific and United States. So in this way, we already have some kind of institutional arrangement to hold their inter-regional cooperation among us. But regarding RCEP, I would say that so far, we should have our regional identity based upon our regional framework to enhance our economic cooperation within the region of RCEP region. Okay, this is my point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Excellency, Dr. Foxipana, please.
I think what is interesting is that we're talking about free trade agreement versus the cooperation framework, right? I read somewhere recently that for Premier Li Keqiang is interested to join the TPP, the CPTPP. It's quite interesting stance. To me, so many things is left dangling because we don't know what the new U.S. administration position will be, but for sure, I don't think they will have any interest in the RCEP for quite a while because number one, we know that they have their own baby at one point. The TPP, it was abandoned by the previous administration. The new administration may want to come back as much as, I think because we always leave the door open, right? It's no different than with RCEP, we always leave the door open for India. TPP, we always leave the door open for the US. But again, for example, I don't see India coming back anytime soon. Look what's happening with the daily demonstration by the farmer, for example, and the fear that the trade deficit with China will be, so huge. I doubt the Modi administration will be anytime ready to face their local constituency. Again, it's the same thing with the US. For the next couple of years, the new administration will be busy just stabilizing their own internal situation. So I don't think trade will be in their utmost priority for now, right? I mean, of course, with the EU, they have restarted already some negotiation for the trans-Atlantic, partnership. But again, the dynamic between the US and the EU are very much closer. It's like us, ASEAN, and the East Asia. We're much closer. The similarity between us and the US and the EU is quite clear. But to me, I think, one can never know what the future will hold, right? One can never know what the leader will have in mind, but I can say this, that the RCEP, the biggest, I would say, political message the RCEP carry is that multilateralism is back, multilateralism is once again, on the forefront. And with RCEP leading, we can feel that, we can rely on a stronger, multilateralism to support economic growth, which has been the trend for the last 50 years is multilateralism, right? One hope that the EU, I mean the US administration will come back to the multilateral forum, you know, and we heard already from a previous statement from the president-elect that they will, you know, the US will come back to the climate change, will join other multilateral forum like WHO. But to me, you know, what is important is that we get the WTO back on track. We need the WTO appellate body to function. You know, we need a solid reform of the WTO so that it can play, you know, as it should be, you know, a good role in promoting and defending multilateral trade. Yeah, and RCEP would benefit from the WTO dispute resolution because, you know, let's be real about it. You know, in RCEP, and so Kane can add that, you know, dispute mechanism is definitely not its strength. Okay, you know, in RCEP, I must say, right? So we still rely on the institutional framework of the WTO, if and when its appellate body is back to work. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Excellency Dr. Sasapana. So the same question, may I ask Excellency Simsok Kane, you have any idea to share with us before we start with the second session?
Thank you, moderator. As I mentioned earlier, RCEP is the ASEAN lead FTA, and it built on the ASEAN FTA +1 FTA. The existing one come to RCEP. So this is the first thing. And second thing, for the agreement itself, for the accession, the RCEP is open wide. We open widely. And the third point, there are also some countries already interesting to joining the RCEP. Even some of them in Asia region, and some even outside already expressed their interest to the RCEP. Even those they haven't put the official, but only some the in the region, in Asia region, they put the official letter to some of the member, to all the member, and some even they invite some of our negotiation lead to talk how it's going on RCEP. They also interesting, and some even show more intention. Some country even show more intention, interesting to join RCEP. As I mentioned, the RCEP is unique, different from other FTA. Professor Su how just mentioned there about LDC, Cambodian as LDC. Yes, we are in RCEP, the LDC, developing and developed country, and a small, big, and mature. So other they see there may be fit with RCEP than other FTA. So this is another thing. So I repeat again, for the agreement itself, the accession is open to all. But the decision is will be the original, the RCEP presently 15 countries who will admit who to be the member later on. So this process we have to build up more, because this one, the RCEP haven't entered the force yet. When they enter force, so they have to build up furthermore how the rule and procedure for the accession country to fulfill. There is more detail on that going to do so. So this is another homework that we need to build up, and we need to talk before we admit other country more to come in. But for sure, RCEP is open mind, open heart, and welcome country that interesting. Let and see on that when like Dr. Soksipana mentioned, what will the leader, our leader, say from time to time. So we hope. The more important, we have to hope and to see that the RCEP must be EAF by 1st January 2022. This is the best one, and all the country must be ratified and fulfill all the legal proceeding by this year. So this is the first step that we have to do, and we see later on. Thank you, moderator. I may pass back to you.
Thank you so much, Excellency Simsok Kane, for your insightful idea. Now we are moving to the last round of our panel discussion, which is Q&A from our online audiences. So there are quite a number of questions from our audiences here, but I will pick up some, I think pick up some questions that is more relevant to our topics. So the first questions, it's from Christopher Gio. This is addressed to all our panelists. Under the recent regional economic collaboration, what will be the key areas and industries that Cambodia will focus in the next few years? Also, will there be investments from government to accelerate this kind of success? So I think there are two questions here from Christopher Yo. The first is what will be the key area and industries that Cambodia should focus on in the next few years? And the second question is, will there be investment from our government, I mean Cambodian government, in order to accelerate such a success? So I think this one may not be a direct question to Professor Su Hao. Maybe Professor Su can share in the next question. So this one will be for Excellency Sum Suk and Excellency Dr. Saksipana, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's take first. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, moderator, and thank you, the audience. So very interesting question, and you may see that the key interesting area we already simulate in our DIP, we call IDP, Industrial Development Policy. They are also key there. So you may see that, and first thing, second thing, what our country based on. So you may know already, as we have talked a lot earlier by Excellency Dr. Saksipana and Professor Su Hao, we are agriculture-based country, and we're moving to light industry. And so now light industry, we expand to even not fully heavy industry, but produce some component part, bicycle and other. This on also our best also simulate in our industrial development policy as well. So this is the thing. And during our negotiation, we also try our best to get all of this line that in the present and in future Cambodian able to export. So for the light industry and the component, everything, the garment, the textile, everything that we produce, we already get this one. So this is a good ground that we're able to move. So I just want to open bracket. For agriculture, you may know already any negotiation, FTA negotiation around the world, the agriculture is the very sensitive issue. So this is the thing that in RCEP, we have some certain level, but not all. I close the bracket, but it back to the industry. The industry level that we have presently, we already successful, get almost all of that. So this is the key area that we continue on best, because our negotiation also using the IDP as the one of the point that we integrate and we negotiate for as well, and also other mandate from other ministry and also the leader. So this is the thing. And the second, back to the second question, do the government invest? So for sure, you may see already for Cambodian government, we are really do many things on ensure that our SME are able to grow and grow. Even now, the SME bank already moving, and we have already a lot of incentive for the SME in Cambodian. So this is also another part that maybe attract the other investment to come in, and our SME ready, so they can work and join hands or complement each other moving on this direction. I may stop here, and maybe Excellency Dr. Pana may be able to add on this more. Thank you, moderator. I pass the floor back to you.
Thank you, Sakeng. I think you are right that the government have basically take a lot of consideration into helping SME. To me, the approach in this sort of multilateral or at least mega regional arrangement like that is all about how do we get our company into the supply chain, the value chain. That is the most, I would say, important approach, right? Cambodia we're still in a lower mode of development. Financial resources not there yet. Technical resources not there yet. Scientific resources not there yet. And therefore, one cannot hope to have a whole production, under our belt. So the most we can do for now is how do we get some of our company to get into the supply chain. If the supply chain is 100%, how can we get 20%? How we can get 30%? Cambodia have a lot of raw material, so it could be a place to start. Say, for example, if we have nearly, I don't know now the latest statistic, but a few years ago, we have about 600,000 hectares of rubber plantation, okay? So we have raw latex. Now, latex, raw rubber, is a raw material to make many things, in car component, tire, bumper, spare parts, so many different things, So how do we use our natural resource that we have available now to attract foreign direct investment to come and invest into adding the value from rubber to latex, maybe to glove. You know how expensive a latex glove is, tie, so that's the next level, right? And the challenge is that, of course, the multinational will always benefit from mega regional trade agreement like that. So there's nothing we can do about dealing with the Mitsui of the world, right? They're so big, they don't need help. But we need help. Our SME need help, not to get the whole value chain, but how to get into one component of the value chain. And how do we get into a cluster approach? And this is something that I see already in Cambodia. Some Cambodian entrepreneurs starting to invest into industrial cluster. They're still at a small level, but they will try to bring different industry to come together in one industrial zone that they can support each other, right? And I think this is where I would want to see the government put more support into the development, the sustainability of this cluster, putting the right infrastructure in place so that we can welcome Chinese company, Japanese company, Korean company to come and try to put together a system that the small Cambodian company can be a part of it. And here I want to stress one thing. The reason why we are so open during the WTO negotiation is that our historical background is very difficult than Vietnam, than Thailand, than Malaysia. We just emerged from war. We don't have anything to protect. We don't have any financial resource. We don't have any saving. We don't have intellectual, property to protect, right? So we need access to resource, financial, technical, engineering, everything. So that's why we welcome wide open foreign direct investment to Cambodia. Look at now in the fintech sector, in the banking sector, because our financial commitment under the WTO is very open. We have so many banks, we have so many microfinance. Our fintech is so advanced now. We can catch up. We move to Bitcoin, that sort of thing. So I think this openness is probably the key to Cambodia's success. The government can only do so much because we don't have a lot of money, but it's the power of the private sector. It's the power of this economic liberalization that will enable the Cambodian to attract foreign investors to say, look, become my partner. I have some land, I have this, I have that, but I need this, I need that. And that's how they forge a partnership. To me, RCEP is all about reverse investment also, not just export to other countries, but you need to build your industrial base, and Cambodian company can benefit from that sheer openness by being the partner, the shareholder, of a bigger structure. And then this way they can take part of the supply chain. Even 5% is still a part of a supply chain.
Thank you, Excellency Dr. Sapana, and also Excellency Subsokane for your interesting discussion on this topic. And I think I move to the next questions. From Samsawut, the first sentence is about compliment. Is appreciated for the greatest panel discussion and also thank you to all the panelists for providing a very insightful discussion. But his question is that from the Cambodian, what in this regard, India does not join in. Firstly, what are the challenges of RCEP without India? Yeah, this is the first question. The second question is, what does Cambodia need to reform domestically after signing RCEP in order to be ready to increase the benefit from this important regional economic framework? Thank you very much. Yeah. I think this question will be addressed first by Excellency seems okay, and then the Professor Su Hao. I think more or less you can share with us as well. The Professor Su. So Excellency seems okay. You can start first, and Professor Su and Dr. Soksipana afterward.
Thank you so much. So it's interesting to have that question. Start with India is okay. So now we can touching without India. So as I mentioned earlier a little bit, but I haven't touched down. So now we compare like this one easy. So if we compare the GDP of the world, RCEP contribute to the GDP of the world is 32.2%. But when we minus India, so we left only 29%. So it means that the India able to contribute to the RCEP GDP around 3.2%. And now we compare on the trade because India very big country, so their GDP is a little bit strong. But if we compare to the trade, so if the trade we RCEP with India, so it would be 29.2%. But without India, it's just only 27.1%. So if we lose 2.1% of the total trade, so this is also the big as well. Even if we look at the number a lot, 3 or 2%, but this is the 2 or 3% of the world. It's not just 2% of the one country itself. So this is also big that we need India. So I may excuse, I may not touch on geopolitics, anything else. I just purely on the trade and also. So by including India, it would be better market access for Cambodia and for other RCEP as a whole. I can say like that because this is very important. And it's able for RCEP now 15 to expand more regional and global value chain. The third one, as I mentioned earlier, is some don't have bilateral FTA with India. So the RCEP is a very good tool for them to able to access to the India market because they don't have. But for ASEAN, for Cambodian, we already have. We are the ASEAN-India FTA already. So this we also affect, but it's not strongly like other may strongly affect for them because they are unable to access the new market with full secure on the agreement, international agreement, the FTA itself. So this is another thing. And you may see that India also still developing. So there are more and more big opportunity for other countries in also able to generate benefit. And India itself also have a good potential itself to link to the to regional and global value chain with the big of RCEP because we are the biggest in the world. So this is the thing. And I heard some maybe I cannot cut the question or that why the India leave. So you may know already, Excellency Dr. Soksipana already mentioned that the political reason for India is youth, so they may unable to scope because you may see some country they are able to export cheaper product in India and they visit a lot with some other country, and some other hand they, like I mentioned, on agriculture, so there are also effect on their dairy, the agriculture from other country very strong and quite quality and also reasonable price in India. So there are a lot of things that make the India may pressure very difficult. But there are two school of sort in India itself. There are one school for the business or the big company in India, they are made interesting for also. But another side for civil society and for small business, for small farmer, they are really difficulty with also. So these two schools, they clash each other in India itself. So it make their government very difficult. And so we know already what the party of Modi from. So this can give very clear answer to this one. So I may skip here and go back to what Cambodian reform. So this is a very good question for Cambodian. What we do with Cambodian? So you know already, Cambodian we negotiate, we able to secure that many years. Can be up to 20 years. I can put like this one to make some easy for us to have a transition of time to implement on some certain, but some point is maybe 5, 10, or 15 or 20 years, depend on what area that we get, because we are fight very hard for this transition period for us to implement. And second point, Cambodian have a special and different treatment than other country, so we able to do later on. So during this gap of time that we have, so this is the thing that give us a breathing time for our SME. As Dr. Soksipana mentioned already, we are still lack of this and that, so we have to prepare ourselves for this one. So you may see that the Ministry of Commerce itself already list the few days ago. Last Friday, we find out list of which is the product, which is industry or sector that we should focus on and utilize most from RCEP, from the bilateral FTA, from ASEAN Plus One FTA. All of this one we have in our hand. We will release it sooner or later. Some of newspaper even have the number, but they don't know what is inside there. So we haven't released yet. So we keep and we going to discuss more on that. So this is the point that the audience asked about the reform. So when we find out this, we have the reform. Why don't we use it? For example, we're able to export with 0%, and Cambodian is potential on that. We have to improve more. We cannot bring the raw material from other all the time to fulfill and to export. But so why we don't continue to build up the step to low down that we're able to fulfill for the fully export. So I may end here. Hope the other two speakers able to provide more. I may stop it here. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Excellency Sokhein. Professor Su, I may repeat the question. What do you think about the RCEP without India?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, right? So for RCEP, India had been excluded out of this framework, of course, by their own decision making. But we know that after the end of Cold War, India is also not an important emerging economy like China. So in our Asian platform, India and China also kind of the dynamic sources for the regional cooperation in East Asia and the Pan-Asia. The reason why India tried to engage into the East Asian economic cooperations in the past 20 years, like take the policy of East Look, and then take the policy of East Action. So India want to engage into East Asia economic integration. The reason why India could become the member of SCEAS, East Asia Summit, right? India also tried to engage into East Asia by the economic intrusion into East Asia, right? Like in particular in Southeast Asia. And India also take part in the process of negotiation for the RCEP since 2012. And India also take the commitment for their economic cooperation with China or along their maritime areas. And China and India economic cooperation in the past 10 years quite positive and active. So for China and our East Asian members, we are welcome very much about India to be engaged into East Asia. And India also try to get benefits by the economic cooperation with ASEAN country and Northeast Asian country. But like my points in theoretical framework, regionalism, East Asia, we are the West Pacific coastline area. So India is in the Indian Ocean country. So based upon the regional identity, Indians identify themselves as a South Asian country, not East Asian country. So economically, India also have their own initiative or even the ambition to be a hub for the South Asian economic bloc or even Pan-Indian Ocean bloc, So the reason why India has some kind of dilemmas. On one hand, they try to get the benefits by the economic cooperation with East Asian country. But on the other hand, they also try to build the exclusive economic bloc in South Asia. So eventually, because India tried to enhance the economic building in South Asia, so they worry about East Asian countries like Japan, like China, to much more advantages than India in South Asia. Like China's Belt Road Initiative also invests quite a lot in South Asia. So India worry about that, worry about their too much inclusive with East Asian economy members, to reduce India's economic position in South Asia or in the Indian Ocean area. The reason why at last, at the end of the last year, 2018, India withdrew from their negotiation of their RCEP. So somehow I would say that India's decision is some kind of strategic implication for India to build their South Asian economic bloc, exclude other East Asian members. And second, India has their own ambition to be a hub, to be a dominant economy in South Asia. So the worry about East Asian countries will intrude into India, so will be some kind of influence in South Asia. So I would say that this is strategic decision-making by Modi's administration to withdraw from RCEP process. But from our ASEAN country or our East Asian members, which they open the door for India, because I would say that India is a newly emerging economy. So we would like to have the opportunity to be engaged into South Asia, to expand our economic space in Asia. So China will hope maybe in the future, if the time is mature, we'll welcome India to take part in once again in the RCEP. So I would say that so far it is understandable, it is reasonable for India to keep outside of RCEP framework. But in the long term, we hope that India could be joined in the RCEP. That would be common ground for all of us in Asia, and we could share the common interest among us. And regarding the second question, I would say that because I'm not a real expert about the Cambodian affairs, so I'm not very familiar with the Cambodian decision-making about their economic engagement in the global framework. But in my personal observation, I would say that Cambodia is also have some kind of advantages, economic advantages in the economic framework in the region and the global background. So Cambodia, on the one hand, you have their mature agricultural industry. It's very good natural environment, natural condition. From Chinese concept, we call it the green mountain, green river. It's good for the biological economy. So Cambodia, by this way, it is very important, right? So I would say that Cambodia has the advantages by this kind of biological economy in the region. So the reason why China also stressed the importance on Cambodia regarding the agricultural biological industry. We do hope to get quite a lot of input from Cambodia regarding the agriculture, biological products inside of China. And the second, because Cambodia has the very good economic condition regarding cheap labor source, the younger labor workers. So this also is the good condition for the coming electronic industries building. So I would say that China, maybe we hope that in the coming year, China will encourage the economic cooperation with Cambodia regarding its electronic distribution, economic distribution. And China, we do hope to offer the training, offer the education for the workers to make the worker with the good quality for the electronic industries building in Cambodia. And that's a laid foundation to escalate the economic cooperation between China and Cambodia beyond the traditional economic sector into the newly economic, like industrial sectors for our cooperation. Okay, that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Su. So may I invite Excellency Dr. Saksipana? You have the floor right now. Yeah, Excellency.
I think when at the last, not the summit of 2019, it was the third summit, okay? It was the third summit, third RCEP summit in 2019. I was there, and one thing that was very disappointing for all the 15 countries was that when we listened to the speech of Prime Minister Modi, everyone in the room was very disappointed because it saw like last moment already you spoiled the party, everybody was excited. We are at the level of illegal tax scrubbing, the 99% of the work's done already. We're about to party. And then bang, Prime Minister Modi dropped the ball, and then it bring the mood of the whole summit to a somber mood. But I was glad that the remaining 15 leaders have the I would say the perseverance to say, look, we will move ahead and get the RCEP signed, mandate the technical people to finish the legal scrubbing, finalize a few outstanding matter, and we have to sign because of the pandemic. Everything we need a success story, and the RCEP to me is a victory for multilateralism, is a victory against the COVID pandemic. It's a call for mobilizing the world. So to me, yeah, I think India will come back someday. We don't know when. The door will always be open for India to come back. Like Sukeng said, it's still 2-3% of world, market. So it's not small. But the problem with India is that it's not easy because it's a big democracy. It's a big democracy. And in any democratic society like India, when they have so many different states there, there's so many interests, inside interests. It's very difficult to maneuver for any government. I don't care whether it's Modi government or the next government. It's just difficult. You comply with one interest, you affect other interests, right? And you also have to bear in mind that many countries are also quite worried of the market access by particularly from the service, the mode 4 sector movement of professional. India has a tremendous advantage in that side, and some countries are not comfortable. As much as India is not comfortable to see Chinese product flooding Indian market, the rest of many countries are not also comfortable to see, many Indian, professional or worker go to their country also. But again, that's the dynamics of RCEP. It's when you have 3 levels of country at the different economic development level, it's very difficult to reconcile each one. It's like I think there's a metaphor. They say that we sleep in the same bed, but we dream differently. We're all in the same bed, but we all have different dreams. For Japan really want to see India in the picture. And at one point, when India pulled out, Japan was quite reluctant, to move forward. But it took a while. It took a lot of courage for Japan to move forward, to say, okay, India can come later, but we're gonna go ahead and sign the agreement. But see, this sort of thing, but like I say, it's water under the bridge. Whatever we analyze, it doesn't matter. It's water under the bridge. 15 countries are moving forward. You know, the caravan is going, if I use the Silk Road metaphor, you know, the caravan continue to go, you know, and India just have to catch up later on, maybe with the faster horses. But the caravan is not stopping. That's how I see, you know. It's no different than in the TPP, the US leave, you know, the other 11 country move on. So that's a harsh reality of global politics. So we have to live with that. But I think all in all, look, we have between 15 countries, you know, with 1/3 of the world population and 1/3 of the world GDP. There's enough market for everybody. So let's not lose sleep over India. Okay. Yeah. Let's focus on what we can do to make sure that the 15 country, our market is there. You know, our productive capacity is there. Collaboration is there. Let's make it a success. Success will attract success. That's how I see. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soksipana. I think there are many more questions on the floor, but I think that due to our time constraints, I pick up only 3 more questions. So, this question will be as follows. The first one from, yeah, I think our audience is very interested in your discussion, mostly compliments from the audiences. We can learn a lot from the discussions. I'm sorry. One question from CDC. Cambodia has free trade with China. How about other sectors? What about comparative advantage with other countries and ASEAN countries? I think maybe what the audience mean is that what other sector has been covered under China free trade agreements. I guess, yeah. And what are the comparative advantage, Cambodian comparative advantage in relation to other ASEAN countries? I try to paraphrase the question posed by our audience. So may I ask Dr. Soksipana, could you answer this question, please? Or
well, yeah. you know, the problem with Cambodia, I would say export base, right? It's very narrow. Let's be real about that. You know, a country in the region, Vietnam, you know, Thailand, I mean, less so Thailand. But for us, you know, we have a very similar product. You know, we have only what, like footwear, garment, and other light manufacturing that are produce the same thing in Malaysia or in Vietnam. So to me, it's quite a narrow base of production base, and that's why for the RCEP, it will enable us to diversify into other the market. And also we have to bear in mind that the bulk of our exports up to now has been very much driven by the European market and the American market, not so much into intra-ASEAN and into East Asia. So RCEP will give us another, you know, powerful market destination, you know, on top of, you know, the existing market, the US and the EU. But again, like I say, you know, it's how we now work on the productive capacity of our industry. You know, unfortunately, you know, I have to be very brutal on this one. Unfortunately, many of Cambodian business are so busy making money in real estate that they don't see the need to invest into productive capacity, and I don't blame them. But my issue is that now that you made good money from real estate, you should start shifting some of this profit into manufacturing, into productive sector. That's my advice to the big real estate tycoon, you know, because I can tell you, you know, at some point the real estate market will bust, and then you don't want to see that. And you know, the market is very cyclical. Every 10 years you will have some sort of a financial crisis under different form. But I would really strongly encourage, you know, Cambodian businessmen to start thinking into productive capacity, real productive capacity, you know, in investment into into manufacturing, investing into agriculture plantation, thing that the world need, you know. I think it's a lot of hype about e-commerce, that sort of thing. But e-commerce, you need something to sell. You know, what you're gonna sell if you don't have anything to sell, right? E-commerce is a transaction mode, right? But you need a real economy. And to me, the real economy in Cambodia, we're still low base, we're still narrow base, and this is an opportunity to look at RCEP as a stimulus to invest further into productive capacity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saksipana. So the next question is the address to you again. The question goes to Excellency Saksipana and Excellency Simsokane. What are specific plans for the Cambodian government to take full advantage from RCEP? As both of you mentioned, Cambodia and Cambodia SMEs need the inflow of multinational corporations to help it move in the supply chain. But we can't just wait for this to happen on its own. Maybe the government has specific plan for this. Yes, this question addressed to Excellency Saksipana and Excellency Simsokane. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's happening already for quite a while already. You know, we have a big industrial zone in the Phnom Penh Special Economic Zone, the Sihanoukville Special Economic Zone. They in the economic zone with the border of Thailand. We have economic zone in the border with Vietnam. So the process is already in place. You know, many companies are already investing into regional supply chain in there already. So I think it's just a matter how to enlarge, how to multiply, you know, I would say to increase the scope, but the process is already on. You know, if I tell you that, you know, on this point, you'll be surprised. How many people know that we are actually making mattresses to export to the US, to the point that the US want to hit us with an anti-dumping thing, right? Not many people know. We thought, oh, we only manufacture garments. No, you know, how many people know that we are now manufacturing furniture to export to other countries? A lot of things happening already. So to me, it's just how do we expand? And bear in mind, what the government is doing right now, working with the Chinese government, is to do a master plan, you know, to turn Sihanoukville into a special economic zone, right? I've been very working closely with the Ministry of Public Works and Transport to help draft a interim master plan for transport and logistics, right? And we are waiting now for some component from some Chinese research company to bring in the intermodal on air connectivity and intermodal before we can finalize into a full master plan for transport and logistics. And all these are is activity initiative that the Cambodian government is pushing to take advantage when the RCEP is fully ratified and implemented. Yeah, but I'm sure Sokane have some additional update information on that.
Yeah, Excellency Sokane, would you like to add more input?
Thank you, moderator. And as the Excellency Dr. Pana already mentioned, that is right. We are already existing. Even though we are in Cambodia, we may don't know that we are #1 export bicycle to the world.
You're right.
This is we haven't know, and we are also top. I may prefer top 10 rather than top 5. In fact, it's some with down to top 5 as well for rice exporter in the world. We have many top 10 to export, and we also what we call the backpack, the capital as well. We are also #1 for export the backpack and the traveler good as well. That we invest a lot on that we have a lot of investment and moving for that. So this is a lot of the top thing that we already existing there. I may exclude the agriculture, but I just want to open the bracket a little bit on agriculture, and I move to industry to let the audience who make a very good question on this one. So you may see already we just only agriculture product we earn not 100 million, but Last year we earned billion US dollar already for export, such as merit rye, cassava, cashew nut, mango, yellow banana, Thailand longan, and also the corn. So this is generate, some are even 500 million, some even over that, some even at least around 50 million or something like that. Just to want to see that our agriculture is still there, strong. So what is absorb most of our labor? So when we thinking what we should focus, we are also thinking what the labor for our country and what we are to ensure competitiveness compared to other country, as we are in the middle of the two big countries that are based on export. So I repeat again, we are based on export. So if you look at the statistic, you may see that we are 60% of our GDP is depend on export. So the export are our more important. If no export, we have some issue. So like the two Dr. Sifana and also Professor Suhao, the Thailand and Vietnam. In fact, Thailand and Vietnam also export, and three of us are near each other and also depend on export and also export similar product. So this is the thing that we have to know. So how we play with this one as well. And before I move a little bit furthermore, I just give you some statistic history that if we are look at the 10 years ago, mostly we depend on US market that account over 62 or 63, around that 62 or 63%, just only the US market of our total export. But now it low down after 10 years later on, the US just only, we are export just only about 24% only, and the EU increased from 20% something to almost 40%. But at the same time, the RCEP countries such as Japan. So Japan before even 10 years ago, it less than 1%, it's 0 point something percent, but now it's almost 9%. So you may see that now we are move more to Japan, and later on soon to the, as Professor Suhao mentioned, increasing to China. If we look at the statistic, we more and more export to China, at the same time to the Korea. So these three, China, Japan, Korea, is also another main market for Cambodia to go, and the ASEAN itself that we have. So this is the thing. Now quickly look on the product. Before we are strongly depend on garment factory, is our export about 20 years ago, it's over 90%, about almost 95%. We are depend on that. But now 20 years later on, we look at back, we depend on them just around 70% something. But now we have, like I mentioned, the civil agriculture a month ago, and beside that is rubber that Dr. Sivana mentioned. We have a lot of abundant rubber, but we are unable to make it to the final product. And beside that, the bicycle is number one I mentioned, and beside that, even electronic. Some of you may not believe that some of the small in your phone, even in your camera and other, mostly produced in Cambodian, and export all this small back to the ASEAN country, that you get the phone final product, and we go to Japan, go to other. This is also the part or component of the electronic component are in Cambodian. Now it's starting to the car. Now some of the cars, such as big company, the big brand name of the car also producing some of the wheel, there some wire, some anything in Cambodian as well. So this is the thing that it linked to value chain. So repeat again, is value chain is very important. The question is, we cannot wait other. I totally agree, we cannot wait. So why? The government push a lot, reform a lot of the thing that last year you may hear that the government cutting this, cutting that, even some government agency move from this to that, or because of the proposal to make it easy for the investor as well as for our local, easy to go out as well. So this is the thing, and the list of the target industry are already held in the IDP. So this is there, and this is the thing. And we starting build up on what? Build up on the existing strong that I just mentioned to you, from the civil agriculture to the garment to the rubber to the bicycle to the component, everything. So this is the key that most of the ministry are focused and support to make it moving forward, because we cannot produce the very high-end technology, cannot. But if we look at this one, the young generation now, even me also surprised, we have over 200 startup company related to the IT itself, surprisingly. And if you have some news, you may see that the government already set up the startup center who are bring the well experienced and also the teenager who eager want to start up itself, and also push on the technology to catch up with this one. So even you can see that the Cambodian may be among the top country that have the smartphone a lot, and also the using a lot of more than our country itself. We have about 15 million, but our phone is over 20 million, and most of them are over 80% or 90% are smartphone. And this is another thing that also add to the business. And you may see that some also make a lot of good thing to sell the local product from the rural area, from other via their e-commerce, everything. So this is another thing. And we also working hard to link with other country on this to make our small to that one. I may link beside Dr. Sripana mentioned about furniture, even some small scrap, even they also interesting to export. Some country even during the course of negotiation consultation, they already have their own market, and now they ask us to negotiate with that country how they able to go easily, firstly, and also low tech. So this is we already have in that in general. And the last point I may add is food processing. You may see surprisingly, so now even a lot of food processing, and even some of the big company from other I can say Japan easily invest in our food processing company, small one before, but now it's growing bigger and able to export even back to the Japan, to US and other blah blah. Because I don't want to mention the name, otherwise it becomes the advertising board in general. Because we are discussing in general, we may put in like this one. Thank you, moderator. I may end here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It seems okay. I think the last questions addressed to Professor Su Hao. Yeah, can you? This is from our audience. Can you elaborate on China's role in RCEPs? In other words, what are the China roles in promoting RCEP? Professor Su, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, thank you. This is also an important question to China. Yeah, right. Of course, first of all, I would say that RCEP initiated by ASEAN country. So RCEP is a real favorite to ASEAN country because it makes ASEAN as a centrality in the regional economic bloc. So that's a real victory and the success made by ASEAN country in the regional free trade building. So congratulations to ASEAN country, all right? And then the second, I would say that China also very much favorite to RCEP building, because you know that China will also have several kind of FTA around China. We have so far have their 16 FTA in the past, but it's based upon bilateral, not many like the multilateral, exception of ASEAN country, right? So RCEP is only one so far to make China engaged into the regional multilateral FTA building. So it is very important. As I mentioned that in the past, China already encourages the East Asia Economic Community building. So, but this is just official and this political decision to promote the economic community building in East Asia. So far, there's no institutional arrangement to define our community building. But now RCEP is a real institutional mechanical definition for the FTA all along the West Pacific. So it is very good for China, because we say that, as I mentioned that in my academic research, the pattern of roller bearing to define our East Asia Economic Bloc building. There already is the physical and the geographical there to define our economic cooperation in East Asia, but there's no institutional mechanical framework. So RCEP reveals the physical device for the regional integration in East Asia. So China encouraged this process very much in the past, 8 years. And the third, because not only is our East Asia, but also plus South Pacific, Australia and New Zealand, right? Because economically, Australia and New Zealand is a part of the West Pacific, and this also is a part of the supply chain in the East Asia economic bloc. Because Australia, New Zealand, they supply quite a lot of their, the raw materials for our economic development in East Asia. So have these two countries involved within this FTA framework, this is good for Chinese economic development. So this built a pan-East Asia economic bloc. This is very important. And of course, RCEP is also some kind of the strategic leverage for China to play the game with the United States. Of course, you know that so far, China and the United States is not a very good situation at the moment, right? So if China has their, we call it strategic economic backyard in West Pacific, that means we already have their solid foundation for the economic building in East Asia or the West Pacific. So that makes the China has the more stronger position to have economic games with the United States. That means United States, they have their own economic bloc in North America, but China also have our economic background in East Asia. So that means China and the United States have to play the same level or equal level across Pacific. So I have the points that in the future, in the APEC framework, because China will encourage the APEC free trade building in the long term. But this will become the equilibrium or the balancing pattern across Pacific, along the West Pacific and the East Pacific. So make the two blocks engaged into the Pan-Pacific economic grand framework. So by this way, in the long term, China will first to stress and take importance on consolidate the economic bloc building in East Asia. So RCEP is the pool, important pool for China. And last but not least, China already have an initiative to be engaged in a negotiation in the future in the process of CPTPP. From China's perspective, we say that CPTPP will be the new model for the reforms of WTO. So if China is engaged into the CPTPP process, that will lay the foundation for the future reform of WTO. That will be kind of the new high standard level of the WTO's reform. So China engaged into the CPTPP, that makes China to be more broader function in the global economic pattern. But the RCEP could be the solid stepstone for China engaged into the process of negotiation for the future CPTPP members building. Okay, so the reason why China pay much importance on the RCEP building. Of course, China and Cambodia, we are also member of RCEP. So we also enhance our economic special partnership building. Not only economic needs between us, but also political and strategic needs between us. So from China, I would encourage our government to take their political will or strategic intention to enhance the special economic relation with Cambodia. So that makes China and Cambodia has the hub for the China-ASEAN's economic cooperation. So in this way, I want to say that RCEP is also their leverage and platform for China and Cambodia to be used for the engagement into the regional cooperation. Okay, it's my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Suha, for your comprehensive answer to the question. I think our panel discussion has come to an end. Due to time constraint, I have to possibly end our discussion here, because I know that you all have prior commitments, and especially in Cambodia, I guess it's around lunchtime already. So actually, I would say that the your discussion today is very enriched and insightful. And even myself, I cannot ask you all the questions, and the audiences also cannot ask you all of the questions. So, but I hope that the next AVI will organize a next round of discussion, a similar round of discussion, so that our audience can learn from all of you again. Just to wrap up what we have discussed so far. So regarding the complementarity between RCEP and China-Cambodia free trade areas, according to our panelists, we can see that there's a lot of complementarities between the two initiatives. So Cambodia, as well as China, can reap a lot of benefits from these two initiatives. And in terms of Cambodia's, benefit per se, we can see that although we are the very young and we are least developed economies, but also will bring us a lot of benefit. For example, Excellency Dr. Saksipana and Excellency Samsukhe mentioned, this is a good chance for us to diversify our market to other countries, which we traditionally rely on the United States and the EU. And not only that, it is also a very good chance for us to diversify our production, our export items to other countries as well. And this is very interesting things. More importantly, the RCEP will give us a chance to, develop a production capacity for the small and medium enterprises in Cambodia in order to catch up with other developed RCEP countries, say China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, so on and so forth. And this is a very good chance for our small economies. And regarding the participations of future participation of the RCEP country, the United States and the EU, whether these countries can be can potentially integrate into RCEP in the future. It is hard to predict at the moment. However, RCEP countries tend to be open. We are inclusive. Yeah, we include more. It is better to include more members other than try to cut them down. Try to ignore them. Yeah, and the last but not least, you can see that from the Chinese perspective, RCEP also very beneficial for these countries in terms of expanding its economic power and as well as its economic influence in the Asia Pacific as a whole, as well as trying to RCEP also beneficial in terms of intensifying the bilateral economic relation between Cambodia and China. Again, please, on behalf of AVI, please allow me to say congratulations to all our distinguished panelists, and thank you so much for your insightful opinion and also everything. I wish you all the very best. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for your participation. Yeah.